we are joined today by Sherry Lowe, and she's actually going to be making a special trip to Tillamook, Oregon, on April 1st for a airplane that they are unveiling and showing off at the Tillamook Air Museum, a historic aircraft that was part of the U.S. Air Force. The name of it is a B-52 Stratofortress. Now, the Tillamook Air Museum has worked to restore this airplane that went into service in the 1960s and was part of many of the U.S. fighting war operations through those years. Sherry Lowe, was originally part of the ceremony for when this airplane first started flying for the military. And she's going to be coming back for this restored airplane now in Tillamook that is going to have the ribbon cut on it on April 1st, which should be great and a nice addition to the Tillamook Air Museum. So I want to start, Ms. Lowe, with the beginning of your experience with this airplane. Of course, it came out in the 1960s, and you had an important role in it actually being part of the U.S. military. So what was that exactly when they first unveiled this plane that you were part of?
In 1964, for the Armed Forces Day, they had a big celebration. A lot of the community showed up, and they christened that airplane the city of Bangor. And the mayor of the city gave them the key to the city to put in the cockpit to show them they'd always be welcome to come back to Bangor whenever they're on their missions. And I got to christen the airplane with a bottle of champagne. So they put big spikes on it so that I wouldn't damage the paint job on the airplane, which I understand is really something you don't want to damage on an airplane. Didn't know it at the time. It was pretty special for me because I had just become Miss Bangor and I hadn't done anything like that before.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about the event that happened there on the christening. How many people were there, and just how big of a deal it was?
I don't remember the number, but there were several thousand people there, maybe as many as 10. I don't remember. I haven't read the newspaper article in a few years, but there were crew members from the airplane and military people were standing on the stage when we climbed up to christen the airplane. It was a pretty big event. Dow Air Force Base was a major part of the city of Bangor's population at the time. And a few years after that, they closed, and it affected the city in major ways. But at that time, it was very much prominent in our city's daily life.
Right. So what has kind of happened since that time? How much did you keep track of the service that this airplane flew, kind of from that point that you really got it off the ground and got it started?
That's cute. I did not keep track of it. I was too involved in my own little things that I was doing as Miss Bangor. I was interviewed to be a weather girl on the television, so I did that for a whole year, 5 days a week reading the weather, and had a very busy year doing a lot of public speaking and that kind of thing, which was very much fun when you're 19 years old. So I was pretty much self-involved and didn't worry about that airplane and what it was doing. It was fascinating to me to read about it just this past year, where Christian Girling from the Air Museum has sent me information about all of the missions it's been on around the world, and how it's had its name changed a number of times, and will have a different name now when I go to christen it in April.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and we were talking a bit about the process to get the airplane back to a point where it is something that the public can visit, and it can kind of be put back together in how it originally looked when it first was built. And they had to kind of pick up all the pieces from a scrapyard, basically. Is that right?
Yes, they did. It had been stored in the boneyard in Arizona, which is a fascinating place. I visited Arizona and drove by it, and it looked like every airplane on Earth was parked in the desert out there. It was very strange. And that airplane was one of those for a long time. And then it was stored in a storage area where it got vandalized. So they've had to do it from scratch, refurbishing the outside and the inside. And the Air Museum is really good at that. I understand they have airplanes that they take out flying around during the year, to like an airplane from World War II that we used and one the Japanese used, and they go up and demonstrate things. So I'm really excited about seeing the place. You're probably familiar with it, but I didn't know it was 7 football fields long and had been built in the World War II to house the blimps. So it's pretty exciting for me to go out and just see that, let alone the airplanes.
And this airplane was originally the city of Bangor. How much personal responsibility do you feel it is to see it through its next stage of life, being a Bangor native yourself?
Well, it's pretty exciting. And I was able to acquire from the Northeast Film Organization in Bucksport, Maine, a film of the original christening. So we have the mayor's speech and my banging the champagne on the airplane on a film that we are going to be running. They're going to be running on a loop in the display there. So the original christening will be showing, and I think that they're going to also film this one and maybe have both of them running. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. So what are you expecting here in Tillamook when you come to Oregon? What are you looking forward to about it?
Well, meeting Christian Gerling, the curator of the museum, is going to be fun because we've had a lot of conversations in email and personally on the phone. And he's very charming and seems to know everything about everything. And my son, my oldest son, is taking me out there. He's flying me out there to escort me to do this, which is pretty fun because my husband doesn't fly. So my son, my Christmas present was the trip to Tillamook, Oregon. That's going to be very exciting for me to have 5 days with my son and get to experience this nostalgia.
Yeah, do you expect a lot of emotions to come to you at that moment?
I sort of do with John Lowe the Fourth. That's my son. With him there, it's going to be kind of special because he wasn't even a whisper in my brain when I did it the first time. Now he's almost 50, so it's going to be fun. 58 years later is kind of strange.
I know that is a long time. So again, this rechristening of the restored B-52 Stratofortress cockpit will take place on April 1st at the Tillamook Air Museum. If you are able to make it, that is where you will see Sherry Lowe and the rest of the museum who has worked on this and made sure that it gets back into a fully kind of state where, as it was when it was first christened in 1964.